Hello once again, tennis lovers, and welcome to a major report coming straight from the epicenter of the tennis world. We're bringing you some startling, unbelievable, and to be frank, quite baffling news from the 2026 BNP Paribas Open at Indian Wells. This was the contest the entire globe had been anticipating, a confrontation between two of the most luminous young talents on the WTA Tour. It was a rivalry reborn from their junior careers. I'm speaking, of course, about the round of 16 clash featuring the Philippines' own rising phenom Alexandra Eala and the formidable Czech star Linda Noskova. The headline basically writes itself. The entire world was left wondering what on earth transpired on Stadium 1 today. Alexandra Eala, an athlete who has been absolutely electrifying the tennis circuit for the past several weeks, seemed completely unlike herself against Noskova. Was this merely an off day for her, or is there an undisclosed injury lurking just out of sight? Today we are set to dissect every single facet of this stunning 6-0 to 6-0 loss that was over in a brief 55 minutes. If you've been tracking Eala's magnificent performance in the California desert, you'll understand precisely why the tennis community is in a collective state of disbelief right now. Eala went into this matchup with an incredible surge of momentum. She had recently battled for a tough, exhilarating three-set triumph over Dayana Yastremska, showcasing her tremendous physical and mental fortitude. Her next challenge was against the American superstar and world number 4, Coco Gauff. In that particular contest, Eala was performing arguably the best tennis of her professional life. She was controlling the flow of the match, moving with grace, and had established a commanding 6-2 lead before Gauff was unfortunately compelled to retire with a left arm injury. Eala appeared to be an unstoppable force. She gave the impression of a player on the verge of making a deep, historic push into the final stages of a WTA 1000 event, securing her new live ranking of world number 28. And then came the matchup against the world number 14, Linda Noskova. The setup for the story was flawless. These two competitors had a shared past. They faced off as 12-year-olds at the renowned Les Petits Jeux in France back in 2018, where Eala claimed victory in a hard-fought three-set match. They met again in the quarterfinals of the 2020 French Open Girls Tournament, and yet again, Eala was the one to emerge victorious. The mental advantage in theory should have been with the Filipina star. But as soon as the first ball was served today, that entire history seemed to dissolve into the dry desert air of Indian Wells. Eala appeared uncoordinated, annoyed, and totally out of sync. After holding her serve to remain close at 3-2 in the first set, everything fell apart. Noskova went on an unstoppable run, winning the next 9 straight games to seal the match with a punishing bagel in the second set. Eala couldn't make her shots land. She was unable to find her rhythm. And most disturbingly, she couldn't tap into that signature fierce grit that has characterized her quick climb in the WTA rankings. This sharp disparity between her amazing form earlier in the week and her subdued effort today has kicked the rumor mill into high gear. Fans and commentators are all posing the very same question: is Alexandra injured? Did the physical exertion from her earlier matches, or maybe an unnoticeable injury in practice, affect her mobility and her renowned baseline defense? We understand that shifting from an opponent like Gauff to one like Noskova demands a significant strategic change, but a professional of Eala's skill is usually extremely adaptable. Today, she conceded herself that nothing was working for her. She was unable to get into her flow. But is failing to find one's flow a good enough explanation for a straight sets defeat that ended with a bagel in the final set? Or was she possibly protecting an injury like a shoulder or an ankle? The dense, slow, hard courts of Indian Wells are famously strenuous on the lower body. We are about to delve into the biomechanics of her performance today, compare her movement around the court to her previous matches, and break down exactly how Linda Noskova succeeded in taking apart one of the most exciting young talents on earth with such cold-blooded precision. Prepare yourselves, because this is a thorough examination of the psychology, the strategy, and the physical demands of elite professional tennis. To fully appreciate the scale of what occurred on the court between Alexandra Eala and Linda Noskova, we must go back and examine the strategic context of Indian Wells. The playing environment here in the California desert is entirely distinct. The air is exceptionally dry, which allows the ball to travel quickly, but the court surface itself is known for being abrasive and producing a high bounce. It almost behaves like a clay court disguised as a hard court. This typically gives an advantage to players with heavy topspin, fantastic court coverage, and the patience to carefully construct points from the baseline. Alexandra Eala's style of play, largely crafted at the Rafa Nadal Academy, is ideally suited for these particular conditions. Her powerful forehand and extraordinary lateral quickness are usually her most potent assets here. So what exactly went wrong against Linda Noskova? The solution is found in a masterful exhibition of aggressive first-strike tennis that was executed perfectly by the young Czech player. Noskova stepped onto the court with an exceptionally clear and highly disruptive strategy. She was aware that if she let Eala get into a rhythm with long baseline rallies, the Filipina would likely use the high-bouncing surface to wear her down. Instead, Noskova chose to take control of the match away from Eala entirely. Let's review the serving numbers, which reveal a huge part of the narrative. Noskova served 7 aces to Eala's 0. However, it was more than just the aces. It was the positioning and the pure power of Noskova's serves. She won an incredible 77% of her first serve points and an equally remarkable 81% of her second serve points. When an opponent is defending their second serve with an 81% win percentage, the returner is put under an immense and crushing level of pressure. Eala, who is typically a brilliant returner, found herself consistently driven back from the baseline. She was put in the position of having to hit her returns from difficult defensive spots. Noskova took immediate advantage of this rather than engaging in a rally. From the outset, Noskova sought every chance to hit flat, powerful ground strokes that cut through the gritty court. Noskova's strategy of attacking the ball so early took away the crucial element Eala needs to build her points time. Being constantly rushed brings the psychological dimension of Eala's game into focus. At its core, tennis is all about rhythm and momentum. Frustration inevitably builds when you're always on the defensive, lunging desperately at every return of serve. Eala's body language clearly showed her growing frustration, and after a string of unforced errors, she started hurrying her shots. She started going for low-probability winners down the line, even from poor positions, which only compounded her error count. This created a downward spiral of tactical errors, and that brings us to the elephant in the room. It's impossible not to speculate about an injury when a player who just dismantled the world number 4 suddenly loses 9 consecutive games. A physical reason seems like the most logical explanation. So, was Alexandra Eala injured? Eala's team hasn't confirmed any medical problems, but a close review of the match reveals subtle changes in how she covered the court. Normally, Eala is known for an explosive first step and her skill at sliding into defensive positions. Against Noskova, especially during that disastrous second set, she appeared just a fraction of a second slower even on the hard court. This led to her setting up late for her forehand, making contact late and sending the ball wide. Could this sluggishness be from physical tiredness, a slight muscle pull, or just the mental drain of being completely dominated? We must not forget the incredible emotional peak Eala reached just 2 days ago when she defeated, or rather advanced past, Coco Gauff. Taking down a player like that on a main court at a WTA 1000 tournament is a huge career achievement. That kind of adrenaline rush is often followed by a significant emotional drop-off. It's a common occurrence in pro sports. Learning to navigate these emotional highs and lows is one of the toughest challenges for any young athlete to learn. It's highly believable that Eala was experiencing both an emotional and physical hangover from that victory. A 6-2-6 love result becomes completely understandable, even for a top-tier player, when you pair a lack of energy with an opponent who is serving lights out and hitting with incredible power. On top of that, there's a statistical oddity that's becoming a real obstacle for Alexandra Eala, her win-loss record against Czech players. This defeat to Noskova means her professional record against opponents from the Czech Republic has now shockingly dropped to 0 wins and 12 losses. It's a strange and compelling statistic that demands a closer look. What is it about this particular group of players that gives Eala so much trouble? Czech tennis is well known for developing players who possess powerful flat ground strokes, superb serving technique, and an extremely offensive style of play. Consider players like Petra Kvitova, Karolina Pliskova, Barbora Krejcikova, and now Linda Noskova. They all strike a clean flat shot that travels with a very low trajectory. This type of low-penetrating shot completely disrupts the timing of a player like Eala, who thrives on balls that bounce higher into her hitting zone, allowing her to apply heavy topspin. Today, Noskova flawlessly implemented that classic Czech strategy, leaving Eala with no opportunities to get into the match. However, it's essential that we also give credit to Linda Noskova for her absolutely brilliant performance today. While much of the discussion revolves around Eala's struggles, it's just as important to recognize Noskova's successes. The 21-year-old Czech, who holds the 14th spot in the world rankings, demonstrated precisely why she's tipped to be a future Grand Slam champion. Her play was composed relentless and technically perfect. Noskova remained unfazed even after Eala had a momentary spark of genius to hold her serve for 3-2 in the first set. She merely walked to the service line, delivered an unreturnable serve, and coolly reasserted her control. Her ability to capitalize on 5 of her 8 breakpoint chances underscored her remarkable performance under pressure. Noskova didn't just defeat Eala, she took her entire game apart piece by piece. So what does this mean for Alexandra Eala? Does such a crushing loss erase all the fantastic headway she's made during the Sunshine Double? Not at all. A player's development in professional tennis is almost never a straight line upward. It's a journey of high points and low points with major breakthroughs often followed by sobering experiences. Today served as a stark, humbling reminder of how unforgiving top-level tennis can be. If you're off your game by even 5% against a top 15 player who is at their absolute best, you're going to pay a heavy price. To her credit, Eala displayed great maturity in her comments after the match, admitting she just couldn't get into a rhythm and that Noskova was playing exceptionally well. That capacity to accept a loss objectively and without excuses is the sign of a true champion's mentality. Looking ahead, Eala and her coaching staff must meticulously break down the footage from this match. Their focus will be on figuring out how to counter that intensely aggressive, flat-hitting style of play. Improving her positioning when returning against top-tier servers like Noskova will be a key area of work. This might involve trying out a deeper stance to create more time for a full swing, or alternatively moving aggressively inside the baseline to disrupt the server's rhythm with a chip-and-charge tactic. Should there truly be a persistent physical problem, no matter how small, her top priority has to be rest and recovery before she competes in the Miami Open. In Miami, the courts have a slightly faster and lower bounce than those at Indian Wells, which could play to Ella's advantage provided she is completely healthy and in top form. As things calm down here at Stadium 1 in the Indian Wells Tennis Garden, the main feeling is one of shock, but definitely not alarm. There's no denying that Alexandra Eala was a shadow of her usual self against Linda Noskova. This was not the same athlete who had captivated the audience earlier in the week. Whether a persistent physical issue, the emotional drain from the Coco Gauff showdown, or simply a brilliant strategic play by a superior opponent was the cause is something only Eala and her team truly understand. What is certain is that professional tennis is a merciless sport. It requires peak performance every single time you step on the court. And on this Wednesday in the California desert, that peak was just out of reach for the rising Filipina talent. However, we shouldn't lose sight of the larger context. Alexandra Eala is currently at the highest ranking of her career. She has demonstrated conclusively that she has earned her place on the world's premier stages. She is battling it out with the very best players in the game. Advancing to the round of 16 at a WTA 1000 tournament is an enormous success, which will grant her precious ranking points and, more importantly, essential experience. She has discovered what is required to defeat the top-level competition. And in this match, she experienced what it feels like when a top-level adversary implements a perfect strategy against you. This is how champions are made. It's not just about hoisting trophies, but also about weathering the painful sting of a thorough loss. For Linda Noskova, this win is a huge declaration of her ambitions. She is advancing to the quarterfinals with powerful momentum, appearing to be a legitimate contender to win the whole tournament. Her strength, accuracy, and composure make her a daunting opponent for anyone still in contention. For Alexandra Eala, however, the sunshine swing isn't done yet. The tour now travels to the hard courts of the Miami Open, an event where she has achieved remarkable success in the past. The priority for Eala now is to recuperate physically if there is in fact a lingering injury, and mentally to overcome the disappointment of this performance. We'll be keeping a close watch on her path forward as she regroups and gets ready for her next test. The professional tennis circuit moves at a breakneck pace, and today's surprising upset will quickly become yesterday's news as the next competition gets underway. We're keen to get your perspective on this remarkable contest. Do you feel Alexandra Eala was hiding an injury, or was she just outmaneuvered by a more effective tactical approach from Linda Noskova? In your opinion, how should Eala modify her strategy to finally end her streak of losses against players from the Czech Republic? Post your detailed breakdown in the comments section below as we make sure to review every single one. Would you be interested in receiving updates on Alexandra Eala's future matches and her draw at the Miami Open just as soon as that news is released?